Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we're going to be doing a novel review. Today we're going to be looking at The Light of the Jedi, which is the first book in the High Republic series. This is the first adult novel in the series. It's also the first novel in the whole, project, I guess, which is cool. It's written by Charles Soule. It's published by Del Rey, as you guys can see right there. Here's what the spine looks like. And it's the demographic is adult. There's two other novels that are adult in this series, and then there's a bunch of YA, and then there's a bunch of comics and manga and stuff that are like also have specific demographics, but the only ones that I know for sure are adult are this one, The Rising Storm, and then there's one more that comes out or has already come out that is also adult. I just don't know the name of it, but yeah, the genres here are sci-fi and space opera because that's what Star Wars is. There really isn't too much else to it. This isn't really a military sci-fi story that all that much, although I guess it does have elements of that as well. And like I said, this is part of a multimedia project, so it doesn't have an adaptation yet. However, I can definitely see this being adapted into, some sort of animated show. I think that would be the best way to do it. Honestly, I think Star Wars in general should just be animated. I mean, live action looks cool, but it costs a lot compared to, animation. And if it's going to continue to be the way it is, I don't really want it to be live action anymore. So I don't know. But that's just me being a negative Nancy or whatever about Star Wars. But yeah, I'm just going to say it off the bat. The rating for this is a 5 out of 5. I could literally find no issues with it. I actually really enjoyed it and I had a lot of fun, except for the fact that it takes about 50 pages to get good. But I guess that's just basically any book. And honestly, I think it's mostly my fault because at this point, I'm out of practice with reading actual novels that take a long time to get, interesting. Whereas most manga and light novels kind of move at a really fast pace compared to regular books. So I don't know. I think it's mostly me being out of practice, but it did feel very, very slow. It didn't really feel like it was going anywhere. And then suddenly it all makes sense. And it's all really exciting, so that's really cool. The premise of the story is basically this is set 200 years before A Phantom Menace, and we follow these Jedi and these normal people as they try to have the Republic set up this new thing called the Starlight Beacon, which is supposed to be this giant space station that is supposed to help with the population or the colonization of the Outer Rim. It's this beacon is about to launch, but then there's this great disaster that strikes. This ship got blown up in a hyperspace lane, and now all of the bits of the hyperspace accident are exploding across the Outer Rim, and it's causing a lot of issues. And alongside this great disaster, there's these evil space Viking people called the Nile, which are coming out of the woodwork and kind of attacking all of the worlds in the Republic because they feel like the Republic is encroaching on their territory, which is the Outer Rim. And there really isn't anything canon breaking. However, it just feels a little bit weird that there's these giant innovations that are occurring in this 200-year time period right before the beginning of the story where we don't really see them. Although I guess there is like elements that you could say like, well, the reason why, there's, the HoloNet and the holo video things can work on Tatooine is because of this infrastructure set up by the Starlight Beacon. You just didn't know it at the time. So I guess it makes sense. There really isn't anything canon breaking. However, there's a lot of like things that need to be tightly, wrapped up by the end of this initiative that might not be. And I'm kind of worried about that, but I really have no issues with it so far. So yeah, the plot line is basically we start with the ship called the Legacy Run, which is run by this ex-military woman who runs her freight, system, her freight ship very tightly. She runs it like a military vessel. And she's going out here. She's taking people from the inner worlds, the core worlds, into the Outer Rim to settle them on some specific planet. We don't know which planet it is. I don't remember which planet it is. And as they're traveling through this hyperspace lane, something suddenly pops up, in front of her. And this is not supposed to be happening. However, it happens to be related to these Nile people. And so in order to try to evade it, she pushes her ship further beyond its capabilities. And what happens is that the ship breaks apart because she pushed it so hard. In order to try to save the people, she actually inadvertently caused more issues, right? And so now all of the parts of the ship are blowing out outside of the hyperspace lane. They're basically like becoming too slow for hyperspace, so they're ejecting out of hyperspace into real space, and so they're ending up shooting out in places where it can be dangerous. And we follow one of these emergences, this explosion of things, this debris from the hyperlane onto this planet system called Hetzal, I think it's what it's called. I think that is what it is called. Let me double check. Yeah, Hetzal system. And they call in a bunch of Jedi. They actually call in the Republic, but the Republic can't go. But because of the Starlight Beacon thing that's going on in the Outer Rim, there's a bunch of Jedi that show up alongside this ship called the Third Horizon, which is supposed to be like a giant, cruiser type ship. And they end up trying to help these people, and we get to see this really awesome moment of all of these Jedi joining together to push an object out of outside of a specific course that it was following in order to save this system. And it was really, really cool, actually. It was really awesome. However, it kind of sheds this kind of crazy light on, like, if the Jedi were this good, why were they so stupid in the prequels, right? So I don't know. It's kind of weird. There's a lot of these types of moments, but the point is that the High Republic is when the Republic is at its strongest, and so we get to see a lot of things that are amazing by comparison, and that's due to this decline, this decadence, right? So it's interesting, but this catastrophe happens, scatters pieces everywhere. We get to see the first time that the Jedi confront it, and now we get to see that, the Supreme Chancellor, her name is Sina Lo, or Lena Sao, sorry, wants to cordon off the hyperlanes in the Outer Rim, and this is putting a lot of pressure on the Outer Rim colonies because they need those hyperlanes in order to get resources, but they can't because they're shut down. And there's like this ticking clock where they have to figure out everything. They have to get rid of all the emergencies. They have to find certain information from the emergencies, and then they also have to fight these Nihil who happen to start attacking more often than usual because they happen to have to do with these emergencies and they don't want it to be linked back to them. And it's really interesting. There's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of action scenes and stuff like that. It's very cool Star Wars. It definitely feels very prequel-esque in that kind of like politics plus action kind of thing. It has a lot of like Clone Wars type feeling stuff to it. However, it is very distinct from all of these other time periods in Star Wars, and I quite like it. I thought it was really, really good. The way that the information was presented was good. The book was split up into 3 sections. The first section being the introduction, basically. The second section being the meat and potatoes of the story. And the third section being like the climax that actually has mostly to do with the Nihil more than everyone else, which is really interesting. I really liked all of the plotline stuff. However, it did take a little bit of time to get interesting. I think it took about 50 to 60 pages, which, I don't know, feels like a lot, but I'm also out of practice with reading novels, so I might be wrong and might just be normal that it feels this way. I'm not too sure. So in terms of characters, we have a lot of them, actually. There's a lot of characters introduced, and it's actually quite difficult to keep them straight because you don't have a visual aid attached to it. And there was a lot of times while I was reading this, I was really hoping for, some drawings or some images to be added into the story, and I think would have really worked well. But I mean, I think that's just me getting used to light novels and coming back to regular books. It's kind of difficult. But I think it would have gone a long way to help ease the difficulty of keeping all these characters straight. I had to Google them a lot in order to figure out which one they were talking about, right? In terms of Jedi, we have Avar Kriss, who's a woman. She's a human female, which is this character right here. And she's like a goddess, bro. Like, she is the baddest bitch around. She is so cool, so powerful. And she's really, like, beautiful in, like, an emotional way. I don't really know how to describe it. Like, the way she looks at the Force is, like, songs. And she hears this song, and she amplifies it in order to connect with all the other Jedi. And she's so powerful and passionate. I really like her. Well, passionate's not the right word, but Like, the way she goes about the Force and the way that she's written about is amazing. It's really, really good. I quite like her as a character. But her character design and all the artwork that I've seen is really, really boring. Like, for this, like, glorious, you know, warrior woman, you would expect something a lot cooler, and she just ends up being really lame. At least in her artwork, but that's not here or there. It's not really relevant. But she's a really cool character. There's also Loden Greatstorm, who is a male Twi'lek. I'm not sure what color he is. I think he's a really dark green. And I think that would be him back there. But like, he has a human male Padawan named Bell, and he's supposed to be a black guy. And they say that his, like, Loden's Greatstorm's skin color is almost as dark as Bell's. So is he so green that he's basically black? Like, I don't understand what color he is. And it's a really different color from all of the colors that I know from Twi'leks, because most of them have very bright, vibrant colors, right? Like, even Ula is not really a dark green color. She's kind of like middle of the road green, if that makes sense. So I'm very curious to see, like, artwork of him that makes him actually look almost, you know, like dark skinned, because all of the artwork that I've seen, he's a really mild green. So I don't know, I think it's cool. But he's a really cool character as well. He's a very interesting guy. And it's really interesting to see Twi'leks not be like freedom fighters. And he didn't have a French accent or anything, which is like a very common accent for Twi'leks, which I thought was interesting. Then we have Elzar Mann, who I like his name because it's similar to my actual name. Not really, but kind of, which I think is cool. And he seems to be attached to Avar Kriss in some way. He seems to be like her lover at some point, you know, when they were Padawans or something. But he's a really cool character as well. He sees the Force as a ocean, and it's really cool, like how he visualizes the Force and how he uses it. He seems to be a bit of a mad scientist when it comes to Force powers, and it's really interesting. And we get to see that he calls, you know, the Jedi mind trick the Jedi mind trick, while everyone else calls it the Jedi mind touch. And so he's a lot more direct about how he talks about, like, the philosophical, like, magic stuff that the Jedi use. So I quite like him a lot. We have Bell. I can't remember his last name, but he's Loden Greatstorm's Padawan. He's a 18-year-old black guy. And Bar Yoga, who is a 20-something-year-old, or like whatever the Wookiee equivalent of 20-year-old is, right? And he's a Wookiee. He has mostly golden fur, so he's kind of like a Yorkie, which is fun. I really like Wookiees a lot, especially since I have a Yorkshire Terrier. I have a little teacup one. It's my family's pet. We've had her about 10 years. And the way she looks is really similar to the way, you know, Wookiees look. And I like it a lot. I think it's really cute. But Wookiees are a very cool race. And Bar Yoga being, you know, an important character is really awesome, actually. I really like him a lot. There's also a bunch of other Jedi. There's, you know, Jori Mali. And then there's these very petite, what's it called? Very petite looking Togruta Jedi that they talk about. And then there's this, what's it called? Trandoshan Jedi called Skreer. And then there's, you know, there's a bunch of other characters, and I think it's cool. I really like that a lot, but, you know, it's really difficult to keep them all straight. I would have really liked to see images of them, but it doesn't really matter all that much. I did end up seeing images on my own. There's a bunch of Nihil as well. The Nihil are these basically space Vikings. They are, you know, people that are upset with their lot in life. They congregate, they gather, they wear these masks. They have this, like, lightning storm motif, very similar to how, you know, Vikings had dragons and Thor. They raid and pillage along the Outer Rim. And it's interesting. They're kind of really shitty people. They're led by this guy called Martian Ro. And the other three people that are in charge are called Kazav, Pan, and Lorna something. Lorna D, I think. So these three characters are subservient to Martian Ro, or kind of like there's this really weird setup. Like, Martian Ro is the eye of the Nihil, so he's the eye of the storm. He's the one that manages to provide all the information they need in order to travel through hyperspace using these things called paths. And then the other three are like the Tempest runners, so they're the people in charge of the Nihil. So it's really interesting how they're all set up. And then there's a bunch of other, you know, side characters. There's Lina So, which is the Supreme Chancellor. There's Kementar, who is a analyst guy who happens to be a genius, and he manages to be really, really helpful. I quite like him. It's really cool to see like a tech guy be important when he's not a Jedi. I think that's cool. There's Joss and Rika Adren, who are these normal humans that were helping with the Starlight Beacon that end up helping with the survivors of the Legacy run. And there's also a pair of people called the Santekas, who I guess are related to Lor Santeca, the old guy from The Force Awakens. And those two people are like an old gay couple, which is cool. I thought it was interesting because I thought it was really well written. Like, it wasn't overtly like, hey, look at these people, they're gay. It was very like, yeah, they're just two dudes that are married, and they happen to be hyperspace lane explorers. And I thought that was really cool because a lot of times when you read these like science fiction stories that are all about, inclusivity and stuff, they're really on the nose and they're really annoying about how they do it. And it makes it like feel off because like I don't really want it to be like on the nose. I can just see it myself. You don't have to like show it to me that much, right? You have to tell me that it exists. So I really like that they were really understated with the way they wrote the Santekas. I thought it was cool. There's also a third Santeca that I'm not going to really talk about because they're relevant, but it's like a surprise that they're related. So I don't want to talk about it too much. And there's a bunch of other characters as well. There's one of those blue horn people, like the guy that sits next to the Emperor, who happens to also be part of the Republic side of things. There's this moon guy who happens to be an important character as well. Moons are the ones that are like Hugo Damask. They're like the banking clan people, basically, which is cool. And yeah, in terms of characters, it was a lot of cool stuff. I actually really liked it. In terms of world building, there's a lot of cool stuff, actually. There's a really interesting set of ideas. There's a lot of cool ships that are new. The way the Nile have their ships is very different from the way everyone else has their ships. There's a lot of Jedi exclusive technology, which is really cool because from what I understand it in the prequels and in the original trilogy and the sequels, there really is no Jedi exclusive technology beyond lightsabers. So having all of these things be lightsaber activated, like the ships and everything else, is really, really cool, and it's actually very, very efficient and very thoughtful, and I thought that was really awesome. However, it kind of sucks because then the original trilogy, the prequels, which are the height of like luxury and decadence in Star Wars, don't have all of those really cool things, right? So I don't know. I really hope we get to see an animated version of this story or of this time period at some point, because I would really like to see all of these Jedi ships and all of these Jedi powers seen on television, right? So it would really be really, really cool. There's a lot of cool political stuff, the way that the world works at this time period is very different from how we see it elsewhere. However, there's this really weird, I don't know, thing where everyone says we're all the Republic, and in and of itself is not really that big of a statement, but the way they say it is like very culty, and it's almost like very extreme patriotism, almost nationalism, and it's really weird. Like, I don't really like how it works. Everyone says it, the Jedi, the Chancellor, all the random people, even the Nile say it, in derision, right? But they still do say it if they disagree with it, and it just feels really like on the nose, kind of really. I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't feel individualistic enough. It feels very, very like culty, and it's really not cool. I don't know. Maybe I'm associating it with the wrong type of thing. But it just feels really off, and I don't like it. But it is a common thing that happens a lot in the book, right? Which is supposed to be like unity and power through unity type of thing. But I don't know. It just comes off kind of really iffy. So I don't know. But I mean, it's not a complaint. I just think the storytelling is this way, and this specific wording of it makes it seem like it's going to be part of the problem, like the issue, like it might be part of the issue that leads to the downfall, that leads into the extreme decadence of the prequel trilogy. I'm not complaining about it in the like literate, like in the like this is a problem sense, more in the this is just weird. And I'm curious to see if it has to do with the storyline, right? Other than that, the Jedi stuff is really, really cool. The way the powers work, the way everything is explained as everyone looks at it differently is really cool. There's another thing that I wanted to talk about. It's not really like an issue or anything. It was just an observation. And it was like, I think it's mostly my own biases. about how I feel about, Kathleen Kennedy and like modern Disney Star Wars, right? Because I noticed that there was a lot of female characters that were in positions of power or were very important compared to male characters. And this really wouldn't have been an issue or something I noticed in any other series. But just because I have like negative like views on Kathleen Kennedy and her like the Force is female type, stances on stuff, it kind of annoyed me when I noticed it, but it wasn't really like a consistent thing. But it was just like the Chancellor is a woman, the main Jedi character is a woman, the secondary main Jedi character that's in charge of the Starlight Beacon is a woman. The first character we get introduced to is a woman. There's just it just looks like there's a lot more women than there would be normally in a series, which is not actually true. It's a pretty normal spread. It's more or less even actually, but it just felt really weird that all of the people in charge were women. I don't really have a problem with it like IRL. It was just like I noticed it, and then I realized that it was because it was Star Wars, and then because it was Star Wars, it linked to Kathleen Kennedy, which I don't like because I don't like the way she handles Star Wars, and so it was kind of like this very small like self-contained circle of like reasoning that I didn't like, but it, once I finished the book, it didn't really matter. So I don't know, it's whatever. I just thought it was interesting to notice it because I think it mostly is just like my fault that I noticed it and associated with something bad. Because otherwise it's actually really good, and I like all of the female characters that are introduced. So I don't know, it was just a weird thing to think about, and I noticed it, so I wanted to talk about it. But other than that, it's a really good book actually. I really enjoyed it. The rating that I give it is 5 out of 5 because I really can't find anything wrong with it, and I really enjoyed reading it. I thought it was really cool. It was a really different look at Star Wars, and it still managed to contain a lot of the quintessential feeling things that were part of Star Wars that I really like. It had lightsabers, it had a lot of politics, it did feel like a space opera in the true sense. It was really, really cool actually. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's my review of The Light of the Jedi. I can't wait to get into The Rising Storm, which is the second book in the series, or at least the second adult novel in the series. And I might check out some other High Republic things. There's a comic book, I know. There's also some manga that I might want to check out, but I'm not too sure. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know your thought. And thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.